Hey all, welcome. So this session is something where we are going to just discuss about the high level important points about LoadRunner so that it would be easier for you to handle any sort of technical interviews. So this is not going to be the coding part. So we are not going to work on the coding part because already in the sessions we have discussed how to do the coding and other things. But this is something which we need to know technically. So to answer any of the interviews or telephonic interviews or any technical interviews or maybe sort of online interviews, whichever you take. Okay, so for that purpose, I have listed out some of the important points. So we are just going to see that. So first, what are the different types of performance testing available? So the performance testing is something where you are going to test the speed and the processing about the application to understand like when multiple users are accessing the system, how the application is responding, how the application server is responding, uh, when multiple users are doing multiple different type of transaction, how the servers are responding. In order to verify that, we perform performance testing. So those performance testing has been classified into load, stress, and capacity. Load is something like whenever an application is created, they determine that this application might be used by 100 users or 200 users. To ensure that the capacity, whatever they have mentioned, that 100 users, 200 user, so to ensure that whether with that expected load, whether the application is able to perform well, whether the application is able to meet all the service level agreements. So considering that is considered to be load. Stress is like any application you can take. There is always a period where it may go or the load might be increased. We cannot expect, right? For example, a bank may expect that. So during the time there might be only, for example, say during the normal time, they might expect that in a month they will be getting only 100 to 200 loan applications per branch. But now it is a pandemic time, so everyone is in need of money due to medical emergency or due to loss of jobs or due to uh, any unexpected uncertain situation. So in that case their expected load might be increasing, right? So in that case, how does the application perform? They need to verify. For that, stress testing. So stress is something where they have to verify whether when it increases the capacity, the expected one, how does the application behave? It should not break. The application should not break. Instead, it may not respond, or the response time might be getting a little bit slow. Those and all are okay, but the application should not be broken. Testing that is considered to be stress. Capacity is to measure the overall capacity and to determine when the response time turns unacceptable. So this is a to ensure that at which point of time the expected SLA is not met. So this is about the different types of testing we do. What are the notable testing solutions for performance testing? Means like a different types of testing tools. Performance testing tool means already we have gone through the load runner. Similarly, we have JMeter, QA load is there, web load is there. Nowadays, Neo load is there, Silk Performer is there. So there are multiple tools available. So all are commercial tools except JMeter. JMeter is an open source tool. What is LoadRunner and what type of testing it can perform means, LoadRunner is a performance testing tool. It is capable of performing all the various things like load testing, stress testing, endurance, data, volume, and spike testing. So we know load, stress. What do we mean by endurance? Means running for a long time. Data volume means where we are going to validate only the, so we will be performing more and more options where multiple data transfer happens. Spike testing is where we try to pressurize the server by giving more spikes. Spikes is nothing but increasing in volumes. What are the main components of LoadRunner? So we have 4 components basically related to LoadRunner. VUgen, controller, and analyzer are the 3 components. Where VUgen, you write the scripts, controller, where you control the scripts by applying the load, and analyzer is where you are going to analyze your results. Apart from that, you have load generator, where you are going to create the virtual users. So these are the different components we have. What are VUsers and VUser scripts? VUser means virtual user. That is similar to a physical user, but a physical user is not available there. VUser is something like a robot. You can just consider as a robot. So instead of a manual user, someone is going to perform the action. Here, that someone is nothing but VUser. That load generator is going to generate a VUser. What do we mean by VUser scripts? Means the VUser needs to perform some operation, right? To instruct the VUser that you need to perform some operation, you are writing some script on VUgen. That is considered to be VUser scripts. How does the LoadRunner execute a performance scenario? So this is most important, which is like in other way, they will be asking in a way like, how do you execute a performance scenario? So what is the process you follow if you want to execute a performance scenario? Directly, you cannot execute a performance scenario, right? The first thing is you have to go through the service level agreement and non-functional requirements. And then you have to plan, test planning. So how many scenarios you are going to create, whether you are going to create a manual scenario or goal-oriented scenario, how many users you are going to use. So like that, you have to do a test planning. And once the test planning is done, for the derived scenarios like login, search, logout, login, search, add to cart, logout, login, search, add to cart, payment, logout. So you have to classify these scenarios. You have to create a user script applying all the logics we have discussed, including the correlation, parameterization, transaction, rendezvous points, everything you have to include, think time, facing, everything you have to include and create a user script. And once you have created the user script and you replay it and verify whether the script is passing, then go to the controller and you have to schedule the load. So, and remember that how to schedule the load, that is the most important perspective. Consider that the test has to be done for 100 user, means you cannot straight away go and start a test for 100 user, because if your test fails for 100 user, means you don't know the breaking point. Because of how many user it got failed, you cannot identify that. So whenever we start the load testing, we gradually only increase. So first we start the run with 10 or 25 users. If it is passing, then we go to 50 users. If it passes, then we go to 75. In 75 it fails, means we can understand that application is successful for 50 virtual users, only for 75 it is failing. So why is it failing? We can understand. But when you put it as 100 users and it is failing, means you cannot identify the capacity which it is capable of supporting. So you have to gradually increase the load. That is the most important thing. And once you ensure that, okay, the application is suitable for 100 users, then you have to perform multiple runs. You have to compare the results and ensure that the response time across multiple results are the same. And that is where you come to an agreement that yes, performance testing is successful. And similarly, once your scripting part and the controller parts, load generator parts are successfully validated, in few of the runs, you have to validate the server part also, which is the last part we discussed. Using your performance monitors, you have to verify, okay, from the performance of the server, which is responding you also, there are no leakages. So this is how you have to do a proper planning for your load testing. Which is the LoadRunner component does the recording of performance test scenario? You know, it is VUgen. What do we mean by rendezvous point? Rendezvous point is nothing but when 10 users are starting, we don't know. The first user may complete the operation in first 5 minutes. The second may complete in next 4 minutes. But if I want a particular transaction to be executed by all the 10 users at the same time, means I am passing all the virtual user at a point. That point is considered to be rendezvous point. What is this vusers required for load testing means? So it does not rely on any static values. First of all, the size of vusers for load testing depends on the parameters like which is your system application under test, what is your hardware and network configurations, available memory, operating system. So considering all this only, we will be applying the load. Okay, so it is not, there is no static values applicable. Like if there is an application I want to perform load testing means 100 users I can test. There is no static value. What is the advantage of running vuser as a process than a thread? This is the most important question. When vuser is run as a process, the copy of driver program is loaded into memory for each request. So which means as a process, then every virtual user needs this copies, the code script. So that will be loaded into the temporary memory and it will be processed. So when 1000 users are used, I mean 1000 users will be using it in their temporary memory. So that may create a memory load. Okay. And that will limit the number of virtual users on a single generator. That is load generator. If you are using 50, means 50 will create a temporary memory to store the driver code, which is like from the VUGen, they collect the code and keep it with them because they are going to run it as a process. So till they completely execute, they keep it in their temporary memory. So what will happen? The machine in which the load generator is installed, it is going to use the disk space for storing it temporarily. Read and write operations will happen. Everything will indirectly impact the performance of your load generator also. So when your load generator performance is impacted, whatever the capacity load generator is capable of delivering, it may not be able to deliver. That is the reason why instead of a process, we choose thread. What are the things which constitutes a performance test scenario means? Number of virtual users, what is the action you are going to perform, and what is your virtual mission system. Considering these three scenarios, these three factors only, you will be able to do a performance test. What is throughput and how does it related to response time? We know what is response time as an individual component. What is response time? Response time is nothing but the amount of time taken for a request to be sent to the server and for the server to respond it. The total amount of time is considered to be a response time. What is a throughput? Throughput refers to the number of transactions produced over a time. So how does throughput is directly or indirectly related to response time means response time is sending a request, and for that what is the amount of time we are getting to or we are taking for getting a response, that is response time. So when the response time is slow, automatically throughput will also be affected. That is what, when we compare it with response time, we will notice both of them decrease simultaneously. Similarly, the peak throughput and the highest response time strike approximately at the same time because they are indirectly working at the same situation, right? When a sequence of steps or a transaction are processed during the particular time frame, then they are considered to be throughput. But how does the sequence of steps can be performed? As a request and response only. So when the response time is delayed, it will directly impact the throughput. And what is the purpose of an extended log? You may remember in the runtime settings, we have logging where we enable the extended log. So extended log is something which will capture everything from the response server, like HTML page, whatever the body, everything it will, and even the parameter substitution, whatever we have parameterized and the correlation, everything will be identified. What are the different types of logs? Standard logs and extended. Standard logs is such that it will just say this is the request, this request is successful. But extended log will say this is the request, for this the server provided this response. That is the difference. What are the checkpoints available in LoadRunner and what is the need for them? There are two checkpoints available in LoadRunner, text checkpoint and image checkpoint. The need for checkpoint is nothing but, in a simple term, validation. I want to validate. How do you define think time in the LoadRunner? Think time is nothing but a time delay intentionally I am giving between two steps. What are the types of goals in goal oriented scenario? The number of concurrent user, number of hits, number of transaction, number of pages per minute, transaction response time. These are the things. What is the significance of correlation? Also highlight automatic correlation. First of all, what do we mean by correlation? Correlation is nothing but where dynamic values provided in the response of the server will be captured and stored in a variable so that they can be sent to the server in the forthcoming future requests. So getting the value from the response and passing it to the request to the server is considered to be correlation. Automated correlation can be done easily by going to the design studio and correlate using the options. Manual correlation, where you have to identify the dynamic value and then you have to capture the boundaries or attributes, and you have to use the command webrex save parameter or webrex save parameter expression or regular expression or attribute, and you have to write your own correlation, left boundary, right boundary, or the regular expression. How do you identify the performance bottlenecks? In a simple way, monitors will be helpful. What kind of monitor? In the server, whatever the performance monitor you are using, those monitors will help you to identify the performance bottlenecks. That is why in the last session we discussed about the performance monitor. How to identify what to correlate and what to parameterize. This is the most important thing. In a simple way to understand, parameterization is any data you are passing as an input, you can blindly parameterize. No problem with that. Any data which is provided by the server in the response cannot be parameterized. They should be correlated. What is parameterization and why the parameterization is necessary means, parameterization is nothing but replacing or substituting the input values by variables so that I can pass multiple values. What is the necessity for parameterization means, when I am running the test for multiple users, I need to use different set of data. For that, parameterization is the only option. What is the difference between transaction and transaction instance in LoadRunner? Transaction is used for measuring the time between execution of certain statements, while transaction instance is used in the, it is a term which is used for analyzing the performance, not in the scripting part. While the script is running, we find some values that may need to be correlated. Means, is it possible to manual correlation for those values? Means no, because the script is on running. But once the script has been passed, stopped, you can manually identify, or even then you can automatically select the design studio and do the correlation. This is the last one, which is the most important perspective. How do you determine the number of load generator machine required? The size of load generator required would totally depend on 2 points. One is protocol used for the script and the configuration of the load generator machine. Each protocol has different memory print, and this decides how many virtual user can be generated from the given configuration of the machine. So there is no hard-coded rule that you have to use 5 load generator for 500 users, 10 for 100. So that is why first, with one Vuser, we have to run the script using the controller. Using Vuser, we usually run the script to verify in Vugen. But you have to start with one user in the controller and see the server related information and how much memory it is consuming. All these things, make a note, and based on that you have to derive a solution for load generator. So in general, how do we provide means, to avoid any dependencies or difficulties, we usually choose between 50 to 100 users from a single load gen machine. Commonly, I'm saying commonly for a HTTP HTML application. So these are the important perspectives of LoadRunner. So that's all. So with these things, if you are able to answer, then possibly you are done with your training and you have enough knowledge on that. And on the go, when you get into multiple projects, you will get all the hands-on required. So thank you for taking this time for the sessions we had in LoadRunner. Hope you will be able to crack interviews and able to automate in the real-time situations. Good luck.